We talk a lot about systems and power. I talk a lot about systems and power because these systems are very minute, dealing in your day-to-day relationships, but also very large, dealing with authority figures, people in charge, people with a lot of influence, people with a lot of money. These structures are easily viewable once you've gotten the pattern recognition down. I don't talk a lot about Jeffrey on my page because that is just, in my opinion, another example of a power structure. What Jeffrey did and the people around him did has always been socially acceptable, whether people want to admit it or not. It has always happened. It just wasn't people that others cared about. When you hear the stories of what happened in the South to Black people, it is the same thing. It was just legalized. It was just allowed to happen. Indigenous children were taken from their families in Canada and sold abroad. Do we think that they did their due diligence on the sale of these children? Things like this have been happening. The only difference was it happened to white kids. And I think almost to a degree, the people involved are surprised at the reaction of the general public. Because if we're very honest with ourselves, the general public has allowed a lot to happen to people. It is still allowing a lot to happen to people, specifically in the US right now with Mexican people being deported and everything that's going on there. There's the Highway of Tears in Canada, and that is specifically Indigenous women. They say women, but they're girls. There's 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds where they label them as women, but these are girls, these are children. But because of the wrong skin tone, it gets brushed under the rug. I read a book, it's called The Highway of Tears, and it talked about how on this stretch of highway in Canada, so many Indigenous girls had gone missing. But one time, a white girl went missing and her family showed up, and it talks about the juxtaposition, like the difference in how the media, the police, politicians, lawyers, like the general public responded to this one white girl going missing on this stretch of highway. And even the family said that they felt a sense of guilt because they realized that this had been going on and nobody had done anything about it until it was their daughter that was missing. And so I don't know when people are going to clue in that this has been going on. It's continued to go on. The reason they don't want to release the files or don't really understand how severe people feel about this is because it was very normalized in their circles. This didn't happen in a vacuum. This has been happening for hundreds of years. And it was only recently that societally people looked at it and said, this isn't okay. What you're doing to children isn't okay. There may be like a relationship to relationship understanding of all of us knowing that this is wrong. And societally, we might have conversations about this being wrong. But I'm talking grand scale. The public has given these people in positions of power the impression that this doesn't matter. There are a lot of people who seek out positions of power specifically because they know that they can do things like this. The money and the status doesn't so much matter to them as the exemption from being held accountable for these things. MGK is one of my top favorite artists, but there was an interview he gave and they asked him who his celebrity crush was. He was in his young 20s, but he was in his 20s. And they asked him who his celebrity crush was and he said Kendall Jenner. And they said, Kendall Jenner, isn't she underage? And he said, yeah, but I'm famous. She's famous. It doesn't matter. Those power structures have always existed. Jeffrey was just one of the first times where mainstream society looked at it and went, what the fuck's going on? But Indigenous children were quite literally sold to the highest bidder. Like people talk about this like Wayfair, and you could go on and there would be a dollar value attached to a piece of like something, and you could buy like a $10,000 this and it had the name of a person, and how that's so crazy. And it's like, is it really that crazy? Because there used to be newspaper ads for this.